"Don't be jealous," Claire said when Marcus first texted. "We're just resolving old issues." I believed her. I'm not that guy who checks phones or tracks locations. But then came the 2 a.m. calls she took in the bathroom. The deleted message notifications, the sudden girls' nights that her friends knew nothing about. So I did something I'd never done before. I came home unannounced. What I found destroyed everything. My name is Graham Devlin, and I've spent 15 years transcribing lies for a living. Court stenographer, the invisible man who records every word while lawyers spin fiction into fact. You develop a sixth sense for deception when you document it 40 hours a week. The pauses, the repeated phrases, the way people's voices change when they're manufacturing truth. So when my wife Linda started talking about closure with her ex-boyfriend Craig, every alarm bell in my pattern recognition software started screaming. "It's just mature adult communication, Gray," she said, cradling her phone like a newborn baby. "We're closing old chapters. You wouldn't understand. You never had serious relationships before me." That was Linda's favorite weapon. The reminder that she'd dated the quarterback while I was the debate team captain who lost his virginity at 22. To her credit, it usually worked. But 15 years of marriage had taught me something she'd forgotten. I might be the underdog, but I'm not stupid. The first red flag wasn't the phone calls, it was the way she guarded her device, like it contained nuclear launch codes. Linda used to leave her phone everywhere. Kitchen counter, bathroom sink, charging station by the bed. Suddenly it lived in her hand. Bathroom trips included the phone. Car charging happened with doors locked. Even showering, the device sat on the toilet seat within arm's reach. "Just work stuff," she'd say when I glanced at the screen. "Confidential client information." Linda worked as a paralegal at Morrison & Associates, handling divorce cases. The irony wasn't lost on me. Week 2 of the Closure campaign, I started documenting patterns. Not spying, just observing with professional objectivity. Call it occupational hazard, but when someone's behavior shifts dramatically, I notice. Phone calls, previously random throughout the day, now concentrated between 11 p.m. and 3 a.m. Message notifications, constant during evening hours, immediately deleted after reading. Charging habits, device never left unattended, even during sleep. Conversation deflection. Any inquiry about phone activity met with irritation or subject changes. "You're being paranoid," Linda said when I mentioned the late-night calls. "Craig's going through a difficult time with Marta. Sometimes people need someone to talk to." "At 2 in the morning? He works late. Real estate doesn't follow normal hours." Plausible, almost believable. But in court, I've learned that plausible often means carefully constructed. Week 3, I accessed our cellular bill online. Joint account, joint access, perfectly legal. The numbers told a story that contradicted Linda's narrative. 47 calls to Craig's number over 3 weeks. Average duration, 34 minutes. Pattern, escalating frequency with multiple calls per night toward the end of the billing cycle. Text messages, over 200 sent, but when I checked Linda's phone during her shower, the message thread showed maybe 30 exchanges. Deleted messages. Lots of them. That's when I stopped being the understanding husband and started being the investigator. My friend Kendrick runs a small private investigation firm downtown. We'd known each other since high school. He was the guy who helped me catch cheating students when I tutored for extra money. Methodical, thorough, and completely unimpressed by emotional drama. "You want the technical approach or the direct approach?" he asked over coffee at Murphy's Diner. "What's the difference?" Technical means we recover deleted data, subpoena records, build an airtight case. Takes time, but gives you everything. Direct means you confront and see what happens. Quick but messy. "How long for technical?" 2 weeks, maybe 3. Your wife's not exactly a criminal mastermind. Paralegals don't usually know about metadata scrubbing or encrypted messaging. If she's cheating, the evidence is sitting there waiting to be collected. I chose technical. Patience had always been my strength. Kendrick explained the process. As Linda's spouse, I could legally request detailed phone records from our carrier. Text message content required a subpoena, but metadata, timestamps, recipients, message lengths was available through customer service. Deleted messages often remained on carrier servers for billing purposes. "What about her laptop?" I asked. Same principle. If she's using iMessage or email and you know her passwords, I knew her passwords. Linda used the same 3 combinations for everything: our anniversary, her birthday, or the date she graduated law school. Security consciousness wasn't her strong suit. That evening, Linda announced another closure session with Craig. "We're meeting for coffee tomorrow, just talking through some old issues, making sure we're both in good places before we stop communicating entirely." "Where?" "That little place on Elm Street. Very public, very innocent. You're welcome to drive by if it makes you feel better. The offer seemed genuine, which made me more suspicious. Guilty people don't usually invite surveillance. While Linda showered, I accessed her laptop. MacBook Air, password 051297, her law school graduation. Amateur hour. iMessage history showed the same pattern as her phone, lots of deleted conversations with Craig, but Apple's backup system is thorough, and Linda hadn't cleared her cache in months. I found fragments, enough to paint a picture. Miss Your Touch? Hotel on 5th Street has He'll Never Suspect. Tomorrow afternoon, room 237. My hand shook as I screenshotted everything. 15 years of marriage, reduced to deleted message fragments about hotel rooms and missing touches. The shower was still running. I opened Linda's email, searching for hotel confirmations or anything related to Craig. Bingo. Reservation confirmations for the Riverside Inn, dated over the past month. 4 different bookings, all for afternoon check-ins, all paid with Linda's credit card. I forwarded the emails to my personal account, then deleted the forwarded messages from Linda's sent folder. If she wanted to play games with digital evidence, I'd show her how it's done properly. Linda emerged from the bathroom wrapped in a towel, humming something I didn't recognize. "You seem happy," I said. "Just feeling good about getting closure. It's healthy to resolve old relationships properly, don't you think?" "Absolutely. Very mature." She kissed my forehead, a gesture that once meant affection but now felt like mockery. "I love that you're so understanding, Gray. Some husbands would be jealous or controlling about this. I trust you completely." The lie came easily. In my profession, you learn that sometimes truth serves no purpose except to complicate situations. Better to let people think they're smarter than you while you gather evidence. That night, Linda's phone buzzed constantly. Each notification made her smile in ways I hadn't seen in years. Whatever Craig was texting, it was definitely more engaging than our marriage had been lately. At 2:17 a.m., her phone rang. She answered on the second ring, whispering so quietly I couldn't make out words, but I heard her soft laughter, the kind she used to reserve for me. 38 minutes later, she hung up and immediately deleted the call from her recent history. Muscle memory. She'd been doing this for weeks. I pretended to sleep while Linda crept to the bathroom, phone in hand, for what I assumed was a text conversation she didn't want me overhearing. When she returned 20 minutes later, I was wide awake, staring at the ceiling. "Everything okay?" she whispered, "just thinking about work. Big case tomorrow." "Get some sleep. Tomorrow's going to be a good day." For whom, I wondered. The next morning, Linda dressed more carefully than usual for a closure coffee. Black dress that hugged her curves, the expensive perfume she saved for special occasions, heels that added 3 inches to her height. She looked beautiful and guilty as hell. "I'll probably be gone most of the afternoon," she said, checking her reflection one final time. "Craig wants to talk through everything properly. Might take a while." "Take all the time you need." She paused at the door, studying my face. For a moment, I thought she might confess, save us both the coming disaster. Instead, she smiled and left. I waited exactly 10 minutes before calling Kendrick. "She's gone. How fast can you get those phone records?" "Already working on it. Carrier confirmed they can provide detailed billing within 2 hours." "What about the laptop?" "Jackpot. Hotel reservations, message fragments, the whole thing. She's not just talking to him, she's sleeping with him." "You want to catch them in the act?" The question hung in the air. Did I want visual confirmation of what I already knew? Was there any benefit to witnessing my marriage's death in real time? "Yes," I said. "But carefully. I want evidence, not a confrontation." "Riverside Inn, room 237. How did you... Never mind?" "Yes." "I'll meet you there in an hour. Bring a camera." The Riverside Inn was exactly the kind of place people chose for affairs. Clean but anonymous, paid parking, rooms facing away from the main road. Discreet enough for professionals who couldn't risk being seen, cheap enough to justify regular visits. Kendrick arrived driving his surveillance van, a nondescript white Ford loaded with recording equipment. "They checked in 20 minutes ago," he said. "Second floor, corner room. Perfect sightlines from here." "You've been watching?" "Professional habit? Your wife looked nervous. The guy looks smug." Craig. I'd seen photos of him over the years. Linda's great lost love from college. Tall, athletic, the kind of man who peaked at 22 and spent the next 20 years trying to recapture that feeling. Real estate agent, married to Marta, father of 2 kids. Apparently having a midlife crisis that involved screwing my wife. "What's the plan?" I asked. We wait, document when they leave, get photos if possible. But the real evidence is digital. Hotel receipts, phone records, message recovery. Visual confirmation is just icing on the cake. We waited 2 hours. At 4:30 p.m., Craig emerged first, looking around nervously before walking to his BMW. Classic affair protocol, never leave together. Linda appeared 15 minutes later, hair slightly messed despite obvious attempts to fix it, that satisfied glow people get after good sex. She walked to her Honda like she owned the world. I took photos of both departures, timestamps clearly visible. Not admissible in court, but useful for context. "How do you feel?" Kendrick asked as we drove away. "Strangely calm, like I've been waiting for confirmation of something I already knew." "That's shock. The anger comes later." He was right. By evening, as Linda cheerfully described her productive closure conversation with Craig, I felt rage building like pressure in a steam boiler. She sat across from me at dinner, lying with practiced ease about her afternoon, while I smiled and nodded like the trusting fool she thought I was. "Craig's in a good place now," she said. "I think we both got what we needed from today. The communication can end on a positive note." "I'm glad it went well." "You're amazing, you know that? Most husbands would have been suspicious or jealous about today, but you trust me completely." "Of course I do." Another lie. But lies were becoming our primary language. That night, Linda's phone was silent. No late-night calls, no constant texting. Either the affair was ending, or they were being more careful about communication. I spent the sleepless hours planning my next move. Kendrick called the next morning with news. Phone records came through. "You're not going to like this, but you need to see everything." His office was a cramped space above a sandwich shop, filled with filing cabinets and computer equipment that looked like it belonged in a spy movie. He handed me a thick folder. Detailed call logs going back 6 months, text message metadata, and I managed to recover most of the deleted content through the carrier's backup system. The numbers were devastating. Over 300 calls between Linda and Craig in 6 months, with frequency accelerating dramatically in recent weeks. Text messages numbered in the thousands, long conversations that happened while I was at work, during my business trips, late at night while I slept beside her. But the recovered message content was what broke my heart. "Gray's working late again. Come over." "I can't stop thinking about yesterday. You felt so good inside me." "He suspects nothing. We could do this forever." "Book the usual room for Thursday. I'll tell him I'm shopping with Janelle." "I love you. I never stopped loving you." That last one was time-stamped 3 days ago, sent while Linda and I were watching a movie together on the couch. "There's more," Kendrick said gently. "Financial records show she's been using your joint credit card for the hotel rooms. And I did some background on Craig. He's not exactly the stable guy she thinks he is." "What do you mean?" "He's facing foreclosure on his house. Business is failing. His wife Marta filed for legal separation 2 months ago. She suspected the affair but couldn't prove it. Craig's been telling Linda that Marta is crazy and paranoid, but the truth is, Marta's a smart woman who figured out her husband was cheating." The picture became clearer. Craig wasn't just having an affair, he was using Linda as an escape from his collapsing life, and Linda, hungry for excitement and validation, was too blind to see she was being manipulated. "What are my options?" I asked. "Legally, you've got grounds for divorce with evidence of adultery. Financially, Maine is a no-fault state, but adultery can influence alimony and asset division if you play it right. Personally, that's up to you." I thought about confronting Linda directly, giving her a chance to confess and maybe salvage something from our marriage. But the messages made it clear. She wasn't planning to end the affair. She was planning to continue it indefinitely while keeping me as her stable, trusting husband. "I want to destroy them both," I said. Kendrick raised an eyebrow. "Legally destroy them, I hope." "Completely legally. But I want Craig's wife to know the truth. I want Linda's employer to know she's been conducting an affair during work hours using company resources. I want everyone who matters to both of them to understand exactly who they're dealing with." That's a scorched earth approach. Once you start that process, there's no going back. Good. I don't want to go back. We spent the next hour planning what Kendrick called strategic disclosure, revealing the affair to key people in both Linda's and Craig's lives in a way that would maximize consequences while keeping me legally protected. First target, Marta, Craig's wife. She deserved to know that her suspicions were correct, and she needed evidence for her separation proceedings. Second target, Linda's boss at Morrison and Associates. Law firms took ethics seriously, and conducting personal affairs during billable hours while using company resources was grounds for discipline or termination. Third target, Craig's real estate broker. Adultery might not matter to most employers, but Craig worked for a family-owned firm that prided itself on traditional values. His affair with a married woman wouldn't play well with conservative clients. "What about Linda's friends?" Kendrick asked. "What about them?" Affairs don't happen in isolation. Someone knew about this, probably helped cover for her. You might want to consider who's been enabling the betrayal. He was right. Linda's best friend Janelle had been unusually supportive of the closure process with Craig. Several times Linda had claimed to be shopping or having dinner with Janelle on days that now corresponded with hotel visits. Janelle knew. She'd been providing alibis and probably encouraging the affair. "Add her to the list," I said. The plan was simple but thorough. I would contact Marta first, providing her with evidence that would strengthen her legal position. Then Linda's boss, framing the disclosure as a concern about professional ethics rather than personal revenge. Finally, Craig's broker, with documentation showing he'd been conducting personal business during work hours. For Janelle, I had something more creative in mind. "One more thing," Kendrick said as I prepared to leave. "Are you sure about this? Once you pull these triggers, your marriage is over. Linda will never forgive you for exposing her." My marriage has been over for months. I was just too stupid to realize it. That afternoon, while Linda was at work, I made the first call. "Mrs. Fallon, this is Graham Devlin. I believe you know my wife, Linda. We need to talk." Marta Fallon agreed to meet me at a coffee shop downtown, far from both our neighborhoods. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and the kind of controlled anger that comes from months of suspicion finally being validated. "I knew he was cheating," she said before I could speak. "Craig's been acting strange for months. Secretive phone calls, unexplained absences, suddenly caring about his appearance again. But he made me feel crazy for questioning him." I slid the folder across the table. Phone records, text messages, hotel receipts. Everything you need for your attorney. She opened the folder and read silently for several minutes. I watched her face cycle through emotions. Hurt, anger, and finally, cold determination. "Room 237 at the Riverside Inn," she said. "He told me he was showing properties those afternoons. I'm sorry you're going through this." "Don't be. I'm grateful someone finally gave me proof. Craig's been gaslighting me for months, making me think I was paranoid and jealous. Now I know I was right all along." She closed the folder and looked at me directly. "What do you want from me?" "Nothing. I just thought you deserved to know the truth." "And your wife? What are you going to do about Linda?" "That's still being decided." Marta smiled, a cold expression that didn't reach her eyes. "Well, whatever you decide, you should know that Craig's broke. His real estate business is failing. He's behind on mortgage payments, and he's been borrowing money from his parents to maintain appearances. Your wife isn't just having an affair, she's having an affair with a loser." That information was more valuable than she realized. Linda prided herself on being practical and ambitious. If she knew Craig was financially unstable, it might change her feelings about their great love story. "Thank you for meeting with me," I said. "Thank you for giving me the ammunition I need to destroy him in court." My second call was to Richard Morrison, senior partner at Linda's law firm. I'd met him several times at company parties, old-school attorney who believed in professional standards and personal integrity. "Mr. Morrison, this is Graham Devlin, Linda's husband. I need to speak with you about a sensitive matter concerning employee conduct." "Is Linda in some kind of trouble?" "That depends on how seriously your firm takes professional ethics violations." We met in his office that evening after most employees had left. Morrison listened without interruption as I presented evidence of Linda conducting a personal affair during work hours, using company resources, and lying to clients about her availability for casework. "These hotel visits occurred during billable hours," I explained. Linda was charging clients for time she spent in bed with Craig Fallon. The phone records show hundreds of personal calls made from the office during the workday. Morrison studied the documentation with the same careful attention he probably gave important contracts. "This is quite serious. If accurate, it represents both billing fraud and misuse of company resources." "It's accurate. I can provide additional evidence if needed." "That won't be necessary. I'll need to conduct an internal investigation, but based on what you've shown me, Linda will be suspended pending a full review." "I understand. May I ask why you're bringing this to me instead of handling it privately?" "Because Linda's actions reflect on your firm's reputation. Clients trust Morrison and Associates to maintain professional standards. They deserve to know their billing is accurate and their attorneys are focused on their cases." Morrison nodded approvingly. "You're handling this with remarkable professionalism, Mr. Devlin. Many husbands in your situation would be more emotional." "Emotion doesn't solve problems. Evidence does." The third call was the most satisfying. Craig worked for Heritage Realty, a family-owned firm that marketed itself as traditional values in modern real estate. Their website featured photos of the owner's family and testimonials about integrity and trustworthiness. I spoke directly with Tom Heritage, the owner's son and current manager. Mr. Heritage, I have information about one of your agents that you need to see. Craig Fallon has been conducting an extramarital affair during work hours, using company resources and lying to clients about his availability. That's a serious accusation. I have documentation, phone records showing personal calls during scheduled client appointments, evidence of hotel visits during work hours, and proof that he's been billing clients for time spent on personal activities. Heritage agreed to meet the next morning. Like Morrison, he was appalled by the evidence and concerned about the company's reputation. We can't have agents who lie to clients and misuse company time, he said. This kind of behavior damages trust with our client base. I thought you should know before it became public knowledge. Public knowledge? Well, Craig's wife is filing for divorce based on this evidence. Court records are public documents. It seemed better for you to address the situation proactively rather than react after it hits the legal system. Heritage understood immediately. I appreciate your discretion in bringing this to me directly. Craig will be terminated immediately. 3 phone calls. 3 professional consequences for Linda and Craig's affair. But I wasn't finished. That evening, Linda came home excited about a new case assignment, completely unaware that her professional life was about to implode. Richard gave me the Henderson divorce, she said. It's a complex asset division case that could take months. Great for billable hours. Congratulations. Craig's been so supportive about my career goals. He thinks I should consider starting my own practice eventually. Really? That's interesting advice from someone whose own business is failing. Linda paused. What do you mean? Nothing. Just that real estate can be unpredictable. She studied my face, looking for signs of suspicion or anger. I kept my expression neutral, even supportive. You've been different lately, she said. Different how? More attentive. Asking more questions about my day, my friends, my work. It's nice, but unusual. I'm trying to be a better husband. Well, it's working. She kissed me goodnight. A gesture that felt like betrayal, given what I knew about where her lips had been that afternoon. The next morning, I made my final call. Janelle, this is Gray, Linda's husband. We need to talk. Janelle agreed to meet me for lunch, probably thinking Linda had sent me to discuss some surprise or marital issue. She was a chatty woman in her early 40s who thrived on drama and gossip. Exactly the type of person who would enable and encourage an affair for entertainment value. Gray, this is unexpected. Linda didn't mention you wanted to talk. Linda doesn't know about this conversation. Janelle's smile faltered slightly. Oh, is everything okay? I ordered coffee and waited until the waitress left before sliding a single sheet of paper across the table. It was a printed text message conversation between Linda and Craig, time-stamped during one of their supposed shopping trips. I can't stay long. Told Gray I'm shopping with Janelle. Your husband really trusts you. Almost feel bad for the guy. Don't. He's boring. You make me feel alive again. Janelle read the exchange twice, her face growing pale. Where did you get this? Phone records. There are hundreds more just like it. Linda's been using you as an alibi for her affair with Craig Fallon. I didn't know. Yes, you did. You've been covering for her, providing fake alibis, probably encouraging the whole thing. The question is whether you want to be honest about it or keep lying. Janelle looked around nervously, as if Linda might materialize at a nearby table. Okay, yes, I knew, but it's not what you think. What do I think? That I encouraged it. I didn't. Linda was miserable in your marriage, Gray. She felt trapped, unappreciated, bored. When Craig contacted her, she was just so happy to feel wanted again. So you helped her cheat. I helped her find some happiness. Your marriage has been dead for years. You both just went through the motions. At least with Craig, she felt alive. The casual way she dismissed 15 years of marriage was breathtaking. To Janelle, Linda's happiness justified any betrayal, any lie, any destruction of trust. Did you know Craig is broke? That his wife kicked him out? That he's been using Linda as an escape from his failing life? That's not... Linda said he was successful. Linda said a lot of things that weren't true, just like you've been saying things that weren't true. I pulled out my phone and showed her a photo. Linda and Craig leaving the hotel yesterday afternoon. This was taken while Linda was supposedly shopping with you. How many times have you lied to cover for her? Janelle's composure cracked. Look, I'm sorry you're hurt, but marriages end. People grow apart. Linda deserves to be happy. And I deserve to be lied to? You deserve honesty. But Linda was afraid to tell you the truth. She didn't want to hurt you. So she decided to humiliate me instead. I stood to leave, but Janelle grabbed my arm. What are you going to do? What I should have done months ago. Tell the truth. That afternoon, Linda called me at work, her voice tight with panic. Gray, something's wrong. Richard suspended me pending an investigation. He wouldn't give me details, just said there were questions about my professional conduct. That's terrible. What kind of questions? I don't know. Something about billing irregularities and misuse of company resources. It doesn't make sense. I'm sure it's just a misunderstanding. And Craig's not answering his phone. I'm worried something happened to him. Something had happened to him. Tom Heritage had fired him that morning, effective immediately. But Linda didn't need to know that yet. Maybe he's just busy with work? Maybe. This whole day has been strange. First the suspension, then Craig disappearing, and now Janelle is acting weird. She called me crying about some conversation she had with you. We had lunch. She seemed upset about something, but I'm not sure what. You had lunch with Janelle? Why? She called and asked to meet, said she was worried about you and wanted to know if everything was okay at home. The lie came easily. Linda had taught me well. What did you tell her? That you seemed happy lately, more energetic, like you'd found something that excited you. Linda was quiet for a long moment. Gray, is there something you want to ask me? This was it, the moment where I could confront her directly, give her a chance to confess, maybe salvage something from the wreckage of our marriage. Instead, I chose the path that would hurt her most. No, honey, I trust you completely. That evening, Linda paced the house like a caged animal, checking her phone constantly for messages from Craig that wouldn't come. She tried calling him repeatedly, each attempt going to voicemail. I'm worried something serious happened, she said. Craig wouldn't just disappear without explanation. Maybe his wife found out about your friendship and asked him to stop communicating. Linda froze. What do you mean? Well, if Marta was uncomfortable with Craig talking to his ex-girlfriend, she might have asked him to end contact. Married couples sometimes make those kinds of agreements. How do you know Marta's name? You mentioned it before, when you were talking about Craig's marital problems. Another lie, but Linda was too panicked to question it closely. At 9 p.m., her phone finally rang, but it wasn't Craig. It was Marta Fallon. Linda, this is Marta, Craig's wife. We need to talk. I couldn't hear the other side of the conversation, but Linda's face went white as she listened. I don't know what you're talking about, Linda said. Craig and I are just friends. More listening. Linda's hand began shaking. That's impossible. You're obviously mistaken about... The call ended abruptly. Linda stared at her phone like it had turned into a snake. What was that about? I asked. Craig's wife thinks. She has some crazy idea that Craig and I are having an affair. She says she has evidence, phone records or something. It's completely insane. That does sound crazy. Why would she think that? I don't know. Maybe she's having a breakdown. Craig said she was unstable. Linda tried calling Craig again. This time he answered. Craig, thank God. Your wife just called me with insane accusations. I could hear his voice through the phone. Panicked, angry, desperate. She has photos, Linda. Hotel receipts, text messages. Someone gave her everything. Linda's face crumpled. That's impossible. We were careful. Apparently not careful enough. She's filing for divorce tomorrow and taking the kids. My boss fired me this afternoon. Everything's falling apart. Who could have... Linda looked at me, studying my face with new attention. I maintained my expression of concerned confusion. I don't understand, I said. Are you two actually having an affair? The question hung in the air like smoke from a gun. Linda could confess and face the consequences, or she could lie and hope to salvage the situation. She chose to lie. Of course not. Marta's obviously having some kind of mental breakdown, and Craig's caught in the middle. I feel terrible for both of them. So, you're not having an affair with Craig? Gray, how can you even ask me that? I would never cheat on you. I love you. The words should have hurt, but instead I felt nothing but cold satisfaction. Linda had chosen her path, continued deception even when caught. Now I could proceed without guilt. I believe you, I said. But maybe you should stay away from Craig for a while. If his wife is unstable, she might do something dangerous. You're right. This whole situation is just... it's a nightmare. Linda spent the rest of the evening trying to process how her secret affair had been exposed. She suspected Janelle might have said something, but couldn't figure out how Janelle would have gotten hotel receipts or phone records. She never suspected her boring, trusting husband. That night, as Linda tossed restlessly beside me, I stared at the ceiling and planned the final phase of my revenge. The affair was exposed. Craig was fired and facing divorce. Linda was suspended from work and panicking about her professional future, but I wasn't finished. Tomorrow, Linda would discover that her betrayal had consequences beyond losing her lover and her job. She was about to learn that the husband she'd dismissed as weak and naive had been documenting everything, building a case that would destroy not just her affair, but her entire future. The transcript of her lies was complete. Now it was time to read the verdict. The next morning, Linda left early for an emergency meeting with her attorney, hoping to salvage her job and understand how her affair had been exposed. She still believed the situation could be contained, that she could convince everyone it was just a friendship that had been misinterpreted. While she was gone, I called my own attorney, David Chen, a divorce specialist who'd handled several high-profile cases in town. I'd been preparing for this conversation for weeks. I have documentation of adultery, financial impropriety, and fraud, I told him. My wife has been conducting an affair for months, using our joint credit cards to pay for hotel rooms and lying to her employer about billable hours. David reviewed the evidence file I'd prepared. Phone records, hotel receipts, recovered text messages, photographs, and financial records showing Linda's deception. "This is comprehensive," he said. "In Maine, adultery doesn't automatically affect property division, but this level of financial deception and professional misconduct could influence the court's decision significantly. What are my options? File for divorce citing adultery and seek a favorable asset division based on her misuse of marital funds. The hotel expenses alone total over $3,000, money she spent on the affair using your joint accounts. Do it. There's something else you should consider. Your wife's professional reputation is already damaged by the suspension. If this becomes public record through divorce proceedings, she may have difficulty finding employment in the legal field." "That's her problem," David nodded. "I'll file the papers this afternoon. She'll be served tomorrow morning." My second call was to our mortgage company. Linda and I owned our house jointly, but I'd been making most of the payments from my salary while she contributed smaller amounts from her paralegal work. With her job in jeopardy, she wouldn't be able to maintain mortgage payments on her own. "I'd like to discuss refinancing options for a single borrower," I told the loan officer. The third call was to our joint bank, requesting immediate freezing of shared accounts pending divorce proceedings. Linda would wake up tomorrow not just served with divorce papers, but financially cut off from the resources she'd been using to fund her affair. That afternoon, while Linda was still out trying to save her career, I began packing her belongings. Not vindictively, just efficiently, like the methodical person I'd always been. Clothes in boxes, personal items wrapped carefully, everything organized for easy transport. I was folding her dresses when I found something that stopped me cold, a hotel keycard in her jacket pocket from last week. Room 237 at the Riverside Inn, the same room where I'd watched her betray our marriage. She'd kept it as a souvenir. The casual cruelty of that gesture, keeping a memento of her adultery in clothes that hung in our shared closet, crystallized my resolve. Linda hadn't just cheated, she'd been celebrating it, collecting trophies of her deception. I photographed the keycard and added it to my evidence file. Linda returned home at 6 p.m., looking defeated and confused. "They won't tell me who provided the evidence to Morrison," she said. "Someone gave them detailed documentation of my communications with Craig, including phone records that should be private." Could Craig's wife have gotten that information somehow? Maybe, but how? Marta's not a lawyer or investigator. She wouldn't know how to subpoena phone records or recover deleted messages. Linda looked at me suspiciously. "Gray, you work in the court system. Do you know how someone could get access to private phone records?" "There are legal ways, subpoenas, discovery motions, that sort of thing, but it usually requires an attorney or law enforcement." "Could you find out who requested records from our phone company?" The question was a test. Linda was starting to suspect that someone close to the situation had orchestrated her exposure. She just couldn't believe her boring husband was capable of such systematic revenge. "I could make some calls," I said, "but are you sure you want to know? If someone went to this much trouble to expose your friendship with Craig, they might have more evidence they haven't used yet." Linda's face went pale. "What kind of evidence?" "I don't know, but whoever did this was very thorough. They had hotel receipts, phone records, text messages. That suggests ongoing surveillance, not just a lucky discovery." "You think someone was watching us?" "It's possible. The question is whether you want to keep digging and risk finding out what else they know, or just let it go and try to move forward." Linda spent the evening in anxious silence, probably wondering what other evidence might exist and who had been collecting it. She tried calling Craig several times, but he wasn't answering, probably on advice from his attorney. That night, she made one final attempt to salvage our marriage. "Gray, I need to tell you something. Craig and I, we weren't just friends. We were involved romantically." I looked up from my book, feigning surprise. "Involved how?" "We had an affair. It lasted several months. I'm sorry I lied to you about it." "Are you still involved with him?" "No, it's over. His wife found out and everything fell apart. I lost my job, he lost his job, our marriages are probably ruined. It was a terrible mistake." I closed my book and studied her face. Linda looked genuinely remorseful, not for the affair, but for getting caught. "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because I love you, because our marriage is worth saving, because I want to be honest and try to rebuild what we had. What we had was a marriage where you respected me enough not to sleep with other men in hotel rooms paid for with our joint credit card." Linda's eyes widened. "How did you know about the credit card?" "The same way I knew about the phone calls, the deleted messages, the hotel receipts, and everything else. I've known about your affair for weeks, Linda. I'm the one who gave the evidence to Marta, to your boss, and to Craig's employer." The confession hit her like a physical blow. Linda staggered backward, gripping the kitchen counter for support. "You? But how? Why didn't you confront me?" "Because I wanted to see how far you'd go, how many lies you'd tell, how long you'd continue betraying me while pretending to be a loving wife. Gray, please, we can work through this. Marriage counseling, whatever you want. Just don't throw away 15 years over one mistake." "One mistake?" "Linda, you had an affair for months. You used our money to pay for hotel rooms. You lied to your employer and charged clients for time you spent in bed with Craig. You involved your friends in covering for you. You looked me in the eye every day and lied about where you'd been and who you'd been with." "I was going to end it. The affair was already over." "No, it wasn't. You were planning to continue indefinitely. I have the text messages where you talked about doing this forever and how I'd never suspect." Linda began crying. Not the gentle tears of remorse, but the ugly sobs of someone whose world was collapsing. "What do you want from me?" she asked. "Nothing. There's nothing you can give me that would undo what you've done." I handed her an envelope containing copies of the divorce papers that would be served the next morning. "You're filing for divorce?" "I filed this afternoon. You'll be served tomorrow, along with notice that our joint accounts have been frozen and you need to find somewhere else to live. You can't just throw me out. This is my house too." "Actually, I can. The mortgage is primarily in my name, paid from my salary, and you've been using marital assets to fund an extramarital affair. My attorney thinks I have excellent grounds for exclusive occupancy pending the divorce." Linda read through the papers, her sobs growing louder as she understood the scope of what was happening. "You've destroyed my entire life," she said. "No, Linda, you destroyed your own life. I just documented the process." She looked up at me with an expression I'd never seen before, pure hatred mixed with desperate fear. "I'll fight this. I'll tell everyone you were abusive, controlling, that you drove me to have an affair." "With what evidence? And I have months of documentation showing you were happy, social, and freely conducting an affair while lying about it. You have nothing but accusations from a woman who was caught cheating and lost her job for professional misconduct. People will believe me. Maybe, but they'll also see the hotel receipts, the phone records, the text messages, and the photos of you leaving hotel rooms with Craig. They'll know exactly what kind of person you are." Linda stood in our kitchen, soon to be my kitchen, surrounded by boxes of her belongings, holding divorce papers that would end our marriage and probably her career. "I loved you," she said quietly. "No, you didn't. You loved the security I provided while you looked for something more exciting, but you never loved me enough to be faithful, honest, or respectful." "What about Craig? Are you going to keep destroying his life too?" "Craig's destroying his own life. I just made sure his wife had the evidence she needed to protect herself and their children." Linda wiped her eyes and straightened her shoulders, trying to recover some dignity. "Fine. You want a divorce? You'll get one. But don't expect me to make it easy." "I don't expect anything from you, Linda. I learned not to trust your promises months ago." She grabbed 2 boxes of her belongings and headed for the door. "Where will you go?" I asked. "Janelle's. At least until I figure out what's next." "Janelle might not be as welcoming as you think. She's pretty upset about being dragged into your affair." Linda paused at the door. "You talked to Janelle too?" "I talked to everyone who mattered. That's what happens when you build a life on lies. Eventually someone documents the truth." After she left, I poured myself a glass of wine and sat in my quiet house. 15 years of marriage, ended not with violence or drama, but with evidence and consequences. My phone buzzed with a text from Kendrick. Saw the divorce filing in the court records. How are you holding up? I typed back, better than expected. Justice feels surprisingly good. The next morning, I drove past the Riverside Inn on my way to work. The sign still advertised hourly rates and discretion, but room 237 would never again be the scene of my wife's betrayal. Linda would rebuild her life somehow, find a new job, maybe even a new relationship, but she'd never again be able to dismiss her husband as naive or trusting. Craig would face his own consequences: divorce, custody battles, financial ruin, and the knowledge that his affair had cost him everything he claimed to value. And I would move forward with the satisfaction of knowing that sometimes the underdog wins not through violence or drama, but through patience, documentation, and the systematic application of truth. The transcript was complete. The verdict was final.